So I decided to make my own review of the Tireflate compressor because every review I've seen so far, they demonstrate how the compressor airs up from very low pressure, say 7 or so psi, and then air up to street pressure of say 35 or so. The reason why I decided to make this review is because I want to use it on this setup, which I do take into some dirt, sandy roads, and even onto beaches. So I air down to 25 psi, maybe 20 at the lowest, and then my street pressure is 80 psi. I called the phone number on the website, left a voicemail, got a call back within 10 minutes from a gentleman, I believe his name was Steve, and very friendly, very helpful, answered all my questions. And he said it should have no problem airing up to 80 psi. It just will take a little longer, which is obvious. So I've already got everything hooked up. Also, one of the things I told him about is I was concerned about the length of my truck. This is a crew cab short bed, and I will eventually be getting a long bed. So he said he would custom make hoses for me, and he did. He said just write in the notes that I have a 170-inch wheelbase. So I did that, and I live in rural California in the Sierra Nevada mountains, so I was wondering how long it would take. He says it usually takes 2 days, but he would go home that night, custom make the hoses, and then they'd ship them out the next day, and sure enough, it got to my house in 3 days. So I was very surprised at how soon it got here. So I'm hooked up, and I'm about 80 psi. So I'm going to go ahead and start airing down, see how long it takes to air down. There's my timer. So let's start letting air out. Down to 60 years old. So 4 minutes, 5 seconds to get down to 25.2 psi. So now I will hook up the compressor, or I should say hook the manifold up to the compressor, start up the truck, and start compressing and see how long it takes to get back up to 80 psi. Okay, I already had it hooked up to the battery clamps. I'm going to fire up the truck. Open up the valve and turn it on. 2.5 minutes, we're up to 39 psi, 39.4. I should also mention that I run high pressure, but these tires are small. They're only 265 70/17s. Okay. Not bad. Well, this is why we test things. I got to about 65 psi in just over 10 minutes. I can hold my hand on the hose. I feel heat. The compressor's pretty warm. I can't lay my hand on the compressor, but honestly, the compressor doesn't seem excessively hot to me. No idea what these hoses are made out of. Was not expecting a hose failure. Very interesting. I'm going to contact Steve. Okay, so I cut the end of the hose off, and here's what I think happened. I can see in there, I don't know if you can see it on the video. If you see, I had the compressor on top of my air box because it was just easy. I've got two batteries, and this battery's easier to get to, so that's the one I was clamped onto. When I had the compressor on top of the air box, it was putting some tension. It wasn't kinked, but it was definitely putting some tension. And this thing was getting really hot, just like all electric compressors do. So I can see in there, I don't know if the camera can, but if you push on that just a little bit, that part of the hose is laying directly against the brass fitting, and I think the really hot air was coming out and just fatigued it, and then that's why it popped. So I gotta go to the store and get a hose clamp. I'm just gonna try to repair this real quick and continue on. And next time, I've already moved it to the ground, and that hose does reach all the way up over here. Probably not going to if I get a long bed, but cross that bridge when we get there. I'll try it again. I'm gonna make sure everything is straight, but especially these hoses here where the air is really hot. Okay, so I have not contacted Tireflate. What I did is I just went to the store and I got a little hose clamp and I repaired it myself. You can see we're at 66 psi, and I got the broken piece of hose. I don't know if it's going to be able to show up on camera, but you can see it bubbled up right there, right through the webbing, and then there's actually a hole. Don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not. So it definitely was the hot air, the very hot air coming out of the compressor, and it kind of pulled down at an angle that caused it to fail. So was it my fault for running the compressor too long and the air getting too hot? I don't know. I've had other electric air compressors. They got really hot too. Was it my fault for running the hose at a angle or a slight pull on it. Maybe that was it too, I don't know. So I've got it, both hoses, about as straight as I can. And I also moved the compressor down to the ground. So I'm going to fire the truck back up and try this again. It's also been well over an hour at this point, so everything's cooled back down. Ambient temperature is probably somewhere between 75 and 80 degrees. So here we go. Okay, so the Tireflate compressor did pump up all 4 tires to 80 psi in roughly a little over 14 minutes. Now we did have that hose failure, so I don't know, time will tell if there's another failure or not. The hoses are a little warm. This manifold is quite hot. I can't hold my hand stay on that manifold or any of these metal pieces, which in my experience has been normal. So I guess it was just my fault for that hose failure. I'm definitely going to be using this again. So yeah, that's it.